So welcome to today's video where I'm discussing the bankruptcy exemptions in Arizona. Now remember, bankruptcy exemptions do vary from one state to another, so it's important to know what the exemptions are in your state. All right. In this video, you can check in the description below. I'm going to have a link to the information to the trustee's office, so just figure out what area you're in. All that information is here, contact information, as well as there'll be another link when it comes to the bankruptcy court system. If you need to find out an address, hours of operation, all that will be listed below. And finally, I'll have the separate blog post just focusing on the exemptions. All right. So all that will be available below. It'll just take you straight to my website, Bankruptcy.blog. All right. Now, I'm showing you here how many bankruptcies were filed for the year. Now, you see that there was more Chapter 13s. Usually that's based on there's not enough of a homestead exemption protecting homes, so people want to protect the equity in their home, and so they file Chapter 13. The problem is there's actually a very good exemption when it comes to Arizona. But I know in certain parts like Phoenix, the property values are so high, which is going to increase the Chapter 13 filings. So you can see here the exemption is 250,000. That is a nice chunk of change. It's a good exemption amount. Some states are higher. Texas is higher. California is higher. Florida has unlimited homestead exemption. But $250,000 is still a good number to protect. And we're going to go over an exact figure now. Now, the other thing, if you see under that, I put research, research, research. It takes me a lot of time to write these blog posts because I have to go through so many sources to make sure that the exemption amounts are correct. Too many times I go to credible websites and then I compare that to the state website where you can see the state law and see that the numbers are off. And so be careful if you're just going to do a general search and you come across a blog, maybe written by a lawyer, maybe not, saying the exemptions amount. You got to back that up. Look up multiple sources to make sure everything's consistent. Your best source is going to be your state's website where you can go straight to the statutes. Don't even go by another website that copied and pasted the statute amounts, because when the numbers change, if they don't update it, you're going by prior numbers and you might end up filing Chapter 13 when you don't have to. All right. So keep that in mind. Research, research, research. Now, to give you an example of how the exemption works, I'm just using a quick example when it comes to the home. And so what I got here is I just did some research. What is the average home price in Arizona? Remember, it's all of Arizona. It's not just Phoenix and stuff like that, because I know those numbers are much higher. And then I got the average mortgage amount. You have to subtract those two to figure out what the equity is in your property. So how much is the property worth and how much is owed is going to give you the equity amount. In this case, you see there's $111,673 in equity. Are you protected? Sure. If those are your numbers, just look at here. $250,000 is you're protected. You're under that amount if these numbers apply to you. So your house will be fully exempt in this type of case. Assuming a million of other issues are okay, you might be able just to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy. All right. So that's basically how exemptions work. Now, one thing I do want to point out, and this is right here, this applies to everybody. Part of the bankruptcy code is the residency requirements, which is 730 days or 180 days. Why two different dates? Well, especially now that we live in a remote society where we might, work somewhere else and your company is located in another state. The problem is you just can't move from one state to another and then all of a sudden claim, hey, I'm a resident of the state. I'm going to use those bankruptcy laws. So, for example, say you leave Nevada and you jump over to Arizona. If you're going to file for bankruptcy, when do you file for bankruptcy? What laws are you going to use? Well, it comes down to these two numbers. First, look at the 180 days. You have to be living there at least 91 days out of the last 6 months to file for bankruptcy in that state. There is that limbo period. So let's say you've been living there 100 days. Okay, perfect. Now you can file in Arizona. What does that mean? Well, it means you're still going to use Nevada law. Why? Because you haven't been there the 730 days. So after you've been living there for 2 years, you can now say, I'm going to use the exemptions of Arizona. Now, I don't know what the exemptions are in Nevada. Let's just suppose hypothetically they're much better. Let's say it's unlimited homestead exemption. Okay. Again, I don't know. I have to get there. I'm still, that's on the ends. I'm still in the A's. Actually, I'm working on California now. You have to decide if you know you're going to relocate and you're already there, which state am I choosing? Is it better for me to hold back or is it better for me to file immediately? So let's use my state, Florida. Let's say you're moving to Florida and you got unlimited homestead exemption, right? And let's say you're buying a house now, and basically say the house is cheaper and it's going to be $400,000 that you're going to have in equity from selling your house in Arizona and moving to Florida. When would you file for bankruptcy in Florida? You would file after 2 years. Why? Because again, you see here, we only have the protection of $250,000. There's $150,000 not protected. So what you're going to do is you're going to come to Florida. You would wait 2 years, the 730-day rule, and then you would have unlimited homestead exemption. So it's important to know if you're going to relocate or you already did relocate and you're thinking about filing for bankruptcy, you got to look at the two states and figure out which one is best for you. I've always said the law is consistent with one term and or one train of thought. Is sometimes you have to speed up a case, sometimes you have to slow it down. All right. So if you had, if you lived in another state that only protected $50,000 in equity, and now you're in Arizona and you want that full protection of equity in your home, then just sit out to 2 years and then file bankruptcy again because you have $250,000 you can play with. All right. Now, of course, there's always other exemptions. They have, you see the exemptions there for a car, which is a substantial amount. So that's good. Florida just increased it to $5,000. It was $1,000 before. Some states have that $1,000 number that is not a lot of protection. The good thing is most of the times our cars have negative equity, which means we owe more in the car than what the car is actually worth. All right. The other issue is wearing apparel. We can have up to $500 in wearing apparel in Arizona. Now, the $500, realistically, that number is kind of high because we use I forgot what I paid for this sweater, but realistically, most of the time, clothing it doesn't everything is a garage sale value. So whatever you would get on Craigslist or in a garage sale, that's what this sweater is worth. So $500 is kind of high, but it's protected. Now, I will say with musical instruments, $400, that's also something separate. Um, Keep in mind though, I mean, you're protected $400, and let's say you have musical equipment, and this is why I say side hustle, or like a good friend of mine who plays in a band on the weekend. You got to be careful with the side hustles because just having the musical equipment is great, but the side hustle is income. And if the trustee figures out that there's a side hustle, they'll go to their Facebook page, they'll go through all that information, or they'll see cash deposits, and you're just declaring your income on your W-2, then you're going to have a problem because your income is off, and this might push you into Chapter 13. Not to mention that there's going to be issues with the trustee and possibly maybe a 2004 examination where they put you under oath, kind of like a deposition, because it could be fraud issues involved. So if you do have a side hustle, that has to be listed on your bankruptcy petition. If you're not in my class or taking using my textbook in your courses, chapter 16 deals with and there's a separate playlist on my YouTube channel where it's just for regarding my textbook. Look up chapter 16 because there I do talk about some of the issues with income. Because income is checked not only in the means test, but it's also done with Schedule I. So you got to keep those two things in mind. All right. Now, farm animals, typically I'll tell you, don't worry about, if you have pets or something like that, that's usually protected. But if we're talking about chapter 12, then it's because you have to do a bankruptcy because you are in the farming industry. So don't worry about chapter 7 then, or don't worry about chapter 13. Farmers have their own bankruptcy petition that they can file under. All right. Now, excuse me there. A couple more things I want to go over when it comes to the Arizona bankruptcy exemptions. I appreciate this one. Typewriter. I have to put that there. Who has a typewriter these days? And it's fully exempt. I don't know. I think it's kind of cool if I had like an old typewriter, but I don't. But they protect typewriters. All right. They do protect one watch up to $250. Wedding rings. That's important. A lot of times, especially if you're listening to this video from other states and you don't have that wedding ring exemption. Notice a lot of times the trustee says, "What is that? Your wedding ring? Yeah, you didn't list it in the bankruptcy petition. What else didn't you include in your bankruptcy petition?" And then starts the snowball effect where you start to get nervous. So be careful, list everything, including your wedding rings. But as you see here, Arizona protects at least up to $2,000, so that's good. I've seen other states that protect up to like the size of the carrot and all that. So again, every state's a little different. Now, burial plots are protected, and also firearms are protected and protected to a certain amount. In this case, $2,000. I will put a link that takes you to an article on my blog. You can also do a search on my channel for that specific video. I'll put the video as well if you want. But understand that when we're dealing with issues of the Second Amendment and issues of bankruptcy, two totally separate issues. So while you have a Second Amendment right to have firearms. You can't see it, but I got my 9mm hanging over there somewhere on my shelf. That is completely different than when it comes to bankruptcy. So you have a right to own firearms. When it comes to bankruptcy, though, there's a number attached to that firearm, and that's going to protect. That's going to decide whether you're exempt or not. It's not based on the Second Amendment. Law school basically has an entire course for the semester called Conflicts of Laws, and there you see that you have this issue of, well, I have the Second Amendment right to carry a firearm. Yeah, but we're in bankruptcy court now, and that's completely different issue. So do keep that in mind. All right. Now, if there's any paralegals or bankruptcy law students that are using my textbook in your courses, likewise, you could always join the rest of us and all you pro se debtors and ask any questions that you have regarding what I've posted or any other videos. Feel free to search around and look for other videos. All right. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And any questions when it comes to Arizona, feel free to hit me up. Take care, everybody.